Your job this evening is to create yourself a nice little nest. It can include or not include a yoga mat. You get to decide about that. What I would like you to include is a surface that feels nice to lie on, as always. Nothing new there, says you, having done multiple classes with me. So all about the nest. There are cushions and yoga props if you have them, things like blocks, bolsters, and seating block type things. And you're very welcome to start either sitting or lying. I often decide whether I want to sit or lie, just sort of dependent on whether I'm feeling kind of vibrant or tired. And if I'm feeling vibrant, I quite enjoy starting seated, because it kind of sits with my energy. However, if you're feeling tired, it can often help to start seated also, because it might stop you falling asleep while you're intending to do a yoga practice, because we're not intending just to be soporific the whole time. So I guess what it's down to is your intuition and maybe an ability to follow your body rather than your thoughts of what you ought to do. And you know that that's my least favorite thing, the idea of doing what we feel we ought to do. Taking a moment to consider your sense of obligations. Maybe it's obligations to yourself or to the world we live in, our workplace, our family, our society. Maybe it's a sense of obligations that feels supportive to our health. But could you perhaps consider if any of those obligations have the potential to be unnecessary, kind of created because of some more species-wide expectation. Like that we should all be a certain size and shape, that we should all look younger than we are, whatever that means, that we should all be productive, that we should all be eating healthily, all these kinds of things that have become taken for granted, perhaps. They all started somewhere. And many of them have behind them, I guess, I was going to say more sinister basis. Sinister is probably not the right word. But a basis that is in control or optimization of productivity, or very often commercial gain that will have started as a different kind of gain, gaining of land, gaining of wealth of some sort. And in case I'm rabbiting on and having a clear thought in my head that I'm not translating properly, I guess examples might simply be that marriage evolved from the connecting of two families' wealth. It was a financial decision between two families, would be one example. And the structure of a week, 5 days working, 2 days resting, is all based around the Industrial Revolution and this conveyor belt of productivity that must never stop, and creating more and more stuff to build more and more wealth. And there are so many of the assumptions that we make about what's valuable in life that when we look around and behind them with a critical eye, there comes potentially a sense of choice, whether to be obedient to those expectations or to be disobedient, to create our own way of being. And while we may not in our individual lives be able to disrupt the status quo, we can take little moments of power back. For instance, in this moment on the mat, choosing what you want. Breathing deeply if you choose. Because of course, some of the things that we offer, that I offer you, are hopefully enhancing your ability to live life as obediently or disobediently as you choose, but as healthily and as comfortably as you choose. But even the pursuit of health is a choice that we can choose to be obedient or disobedient towards. There are some rewards in both directions. And at the time of recording this class this evening, there is a lot of pressure in the menopause world to do menopause in a way that keeps you part of the corporate conveyor belt, keeps you out of the need for healthcare. You know, we're all expected to look after our health so that we're not a burden, but actually that's the way life goes. We don't, yeah, there are times when we have need, greater need. So just looking around the edges of things and seeing where you can allow yourself to think a little differently, maybe, to free yourself from some of the pressures of expectation. And as you begin to breathe deeply, if that's your choice, letting the belly swell, the rib cage swell as you breathe in, and allowing all that settling as you exhale. And see if you can imagine the breath traveling to every cell, so that breathing is not just happening in your lungs, and even going further than imagining the oxygen going into the bloodstream being pumped around by the heart. Could you imagine it literally going into every cell, as if your cells are breathing, which in a way they are taking in oxygen and letting go of the waste product of their function. You can choose to deepen your breath by counting the length of it, but if you actually choose to imagine each cell breathing, it probably will naturally lengthen anyway as you take the time to picture oxygen traveling into every cell and the siphoning off of the waste products of their activity with the exhale. And as you continue to breathe, just taking a moment to notice any struggles in your body this evening or afternoon, or whenever you're watching the recording. Taking them into your consciousness so that they know and you know that they are safe and that they don't need worked into submission, but rather tenderly investigated and nurtured. And then let's tenderly begin to investigate and nurture our neck. You're very welcome to do this sitting or lying, just giving some movement to the head to let the neck move. Maybe turning the head side to side, maybe tilting it, maybe lifting the chin, maybe tucking the chin. Whatever feels good. But it is an investigation as well as sort of mobilization. So we are looking to discover as well as move. Discover what the body likes. And then let that movement come towards your shoulders. And again, this can be done lying or sitting, just squirming your shoulders around in space. If you're against the floor, you might be sort of scratching your upper back against the floor. You might be shrugging the shoulders towards the ears or down towards the hips. You might be circling them. And you might find that the arms need or want to move to begin to allow the shoulders to get into a greater range of motion. Maybe taking the arms overhead or circling them. or wafting them side to side. Again, investigating what they like, but also what are they able for today, given any foibles that may be present in them, any struggles. And then see if you can bring that movement towards your spine. You might want to arch and flatten the spine, which is easy to do safely if you're lying down. Just a little tilt of the tail towards the floor, the lower back arches, and then a touching of the lower back to the floor, the lower back flattens. But if you're upright, there might be a temptation to round the spine more than is wise for osteoporosis. So just if you have low bone density, making sure you don't really round the spine. A little tip of the chin, a little flattening of the spine would be maybe more the thought with low bone density. But the arching is fine. And how else might you move your spine? Maybe little arcs to the side, which if you're sitting, you might be tilting over. If you're lying down, you might take one arm above the head and straighten the same side leg and have a nice long stretch on one side. And then, of course, you might change sides with your speed, see what your body wants. And then looking for some way to find a twist. If you're lying on the floor, it might be dropping the knees to one side or lowering them rather than dropping them. And if you're sitting up, just taking a nice, easy, non-levered twist. If you've osteoporosis, think of the twist happening more in the upper spine, so the navel might stay facing front, and the twist might happen more from the shoulder girdle and rib cage. You can put a hand on your belly to try and see, is the hand staying facing front if you're trying to keep the twist out of your lumbar spine. And then we'll get into the hips. So if you're sitting, you might be maybe circling around the hips. You might prefer to release the legs out long if they're crossed or bent in any way. And if you're lying on the floor, a little wash rag twist where the knees are bent and rocking side to side will get into hips. Or maybe taking the feet up off the floor and circling the knees in the air will work for you lying down. Mobilizing, still breathing, bringing the breath to your cells, but also aware of other movements in the body, which is the fluid movements like the lymphatics and the synovial fluid. And then when you're ready, find a way to move your ankles. And it'd be nice to maybe straighten the legs in some way now so that you're also getting into the hamstrings. So if you're lying down, you might have your legs up in the ceiling, straight up to the ceiling, or you might be lying with the legs flat on the floor and articulating the ankles. And nothing has to stop just because you're working on one area. Doesn't mean other bits have to stop. And just see anything that's coming into the body. We're in the theme of disruption of what's expected of us, and instead being disobedient. Obedient maybe to your body's desires and disobedient to your teacher. So if you feel like a bit of breath or a bit of a change of physical action or a bit of sound, I was posting today about how sad it is that we don't purr. It'd be nice if we purred. There's something very nice about cementing our experience of pleasure by making sounds about it. Like a baby eating an ice cream might go, we don't get to do that when we're grown up, far too reserved. And then if you're not on the floor already, could you please lie down on your back? With osteopenia or osteoporosis, try not to lie down from here because the likelihood is that you'll round the spine on your way down. better to instead roll to your side, arm long, and then roll onto your back. And once you get there, can you come to that somatic arch and flatten? So that as you exhale, the lower back touches the floor, and as you inhale, your tail reaches towards your feet, so the lower back arches. And rocking back and forth as effortlessly as possible, but as pleasurably as possible. Noticing the strength of your abdomen as you flatten the back, contraction there, and the strength of your lower back as you arch, the contraction, the shortening of the lower back. If your hands are on your abdomen, you'll feel the added little treat of a little touch, a little stroking of the fingers against the skin, or the skin of the belly against the hands. Conscious of that, conscious of those little moments of yumminess. And then when you're ready, come back to stillness and take your right ankle onto your left thigh in that figure 4 or eye of the needle kind of position. And just let a little sway come into the hips. And then let the knees go all the way to the left. Well, the left knee to the left, and try and land on the sole of your right foot. And move the right knee away from you as if you're trying to keep the right knee vertical. Well, do try and keep the right knee vertical. So you'll find that there's quite a small amount of twist in the lumbar spine here. Maybe more of a bit of a pull across the lower ribs. And you might feel it in your right hip. And then we're going to change it completely by drawing the left knee up under the right knee and stacking the two knees vertically in line with your hip, or even a little higher. The knees could even be in line with your navel. And what I'd really like is for your right hip to be vertically over your left hip. So I'll show you a different angle of that. So you see here, my right hip is vertically over my left. It's not back here on a diagonal. There's a really good vertical stacking, which should mean that the lower back and the sacroiliac joint are less affected by this twist than they would be if the hip was falling backwards. And breathe. And then roll all the way onto your left side. And you can rest your head on your left arm if you like, or you can put a block under your head or a folded blanket, a low block, please. And take that top leg, the right leg, and with your toes touching the floor, reach it out in front of you straight. I'll scooch back so you can see better. And then stroke the floor with your right toes all the way until your leg goes back behind you, as if it's trying to touch the back side of your mat. It should feel like an extension. If you have any issue that causes you to need to avoid extension of the spine, just go with the legs straight down to the bottom of the mat. As you exhale, slide the toes forward. How do we make sure this is osteoporosis and osteopenia friendly? We only bring that leg up as far as we can go without having to round the spine like this. So we keep the spine long from pubic bone to navel to sternum. And if we can't bring the leg as far forward as we like with straight spine, we can bend that right knee. And then again, we're going to stroke the leg down and back. And stroke the leg forwards into a sort of kicking motion, bending the knee anytime we need to on the motion where you're bringing the leg forward. We're going to add in the arms to make this propeller. So as the leg goes back, the right arm reaches forward and up on a diagonal towards the top corner of your mat or even further away so the arm is straight. And then as you inhale, the right leg slides forward and the left arm slides back behind you. You roll onto the back of your head and you're in a twist. And you exhale rather, onto your side again, reaching the right arm forward, the right leg back. Inhaling to open out. So we're now doing propeller from the somatics canon. And the trick here is to try and keep a sense of connection through your core, from hand to foot through the core, as if this is one limb, one plank almost, or indeed propeller blades, which obviously are much stiffer than the human body and stay absolutely in the same relationship to one another even as the propeller spins. Do a couple more. Look for the pleasure and the breath. Tuning into your core for so many good reasons. Awareness of our core and our strength in our core can help us to feel a little more empowered, help us with our nervous system resilience, even help with bloating, having some muscular capability in the core. Next time you feel like you've finished one pass, it might be in the twist or in the side lying, roll onto your back, rest out completely long, and indulge in noticing the sensations. The probably huge differences between left and right. Particularly notice what feels pleasurable, which is a disobedience in itself. Yoga never really talking much about pleasure, not traditionally. Before we lie on our other side, we're going to bend the knees and take the left ankle onto the right thigh. And let those limbs go to the right. So the right outer thigh touches the floor, the left sole of foot touches the floor, the left knee is pointing to the ceiling. So it's very different to a full twist, or quite different. Breathing, notice what it offers you. And then again, we'll change that. We're going to take the right knee up in line with the right hip or in line with the navel even, and the left knee stacked on top, and aiming for a very flat surface, a vertical flat surface across the back of the pelvis. If you're concerned that you're over twisting in the lumbar with low bone density, just roll a little more onto your right side and then go back into the twist, keeping your left fingertips on your chest so that you're keeping the lumbar a little more facing to the right and that the twist is more in your left upper ribs, chest. And then roll all the way onto your right side, putting possibly a block under your head or a folded blanket or nothing, or your arm, whatever you feel you need. I find that once I got into the full propeller, I didn't want anything under my head, but initially I wanted something. And then slide that left foot forward as if you're just about to kick a little tennis ball that's lying on the floor in front of you. And then slide the foot backwards as if you're trying to touch, or indeed do try and touch, the back side of the mat down low. The leg stays straight, except if your hamstrings make you need to bend it on the forward motion. Try and keep the spine neutral as you kick forward, and either neutral or allow a bit of extension as you take the leg backwards. So we're just not getting into rounded spine. And that's good whether you have osteoporosis or not. And feel that this movement is coming from your core. And it is indeed, if you count the psoas muscle as being one of the muscles of the core, which I believe it is. And then we'll let the leg come in, or the arm come in. So as the leg goes backwards, the left arm reaches on a diagonal forwards above the forehead, or, ahead of the forehead. And then as you inhale, that arm opens out behind you as the leg comes forward, and the arm goes back, and you roll to the back of the head. Exhaling onto your side, that lovely diagonal. Inhaling to open out. You're welcome to play with the breath and do it the opposite way if you like. And I'm going to because I've described it all to you now, I can be able to be quiet now and let you go on your own steam for 4 breaths, 4 repetitions. And when you've had enough, roll onto your back and linger with the sensations. Moving for pleasure and resting. We are already being disobedient to the status quo. Just notice how you feel about that idea, being a little bit radical here on your bedroom or living room floor. I hope it's a happy thought. And then bend your knees when you're ready, please. And I know that this is tricky for some of us to get this rhythm, but I would love to aim for a little spinal flossing so that I can't do it with my slippy blanket on my mat, so I need the stickiness of my mat under my feet. We're using momentum created by the legs to rock the spine up and down the mat, like we are maybe a little over vigorously rocking a baby in a perambulator. Let's say you were standing outside the shop waiting for some You're minding somebody's baby and you're waiting for mom to come out and the baby's crying and you're rocking the pram in the hopes of keeping it calm. So that little rhythmic rocking up and down. And you might find some of you who do find that this rhythm is fairly easy, that you enjoy rocking to one side slightly. So it's almost like you're about to roll over in bed and you rock towards the left side of the hip and the shoulder and the spine and the back. And then you might rock a little more to the right. Some of you might like rocking with the arms overhead, maybe a greater feeling of surrender. Some of you might like playing with one leg long. I find that spectacularly difficult, but some people find it good. Some people even like rocking or pulsing with two legs long. And your legs might get tired, but you're trying to use them almost in the background, if at all possible. It's about the spine, but something will get in the way before your spine has had enough. Your spine could probably do this all day. And when you feel ready to stop, please do. And again, maybe the legs want to go out flat, whatever you feel like to rest and notice. And then bend your knees again when you're ready. Take your arms down by your sides. And just look after yourself there if extension is a no-no for you. We're going to tuck the shoulders down and under a little. Inhale, and as you exhale, lift your pelvis off the floor till you come to approximately having a straight line from your knees to your shoulders. So you're not doing a big high back bend. And then just push with your feet slightly so that it's almost like you slide up the mat without moving. And you'll find that the skin of your shoulders gets pulled down and under. And then we're going to floss or pulse there a little. You might find this easier than the pulsing with the whole spine on the floor. Won't be as sustainable because there's got a lot of muscular strength to keep you up there, but it might help you find that pulse, that sense of rhythm. But we're just trying to get into the shoulders here a little. No big deal. And the next time that you pulse upwards and the arms are sort of pulled under you, the shoulders pulled down, take your hands under your back and either interlace all of your fingers or just hook your thumbs. Preferably arms are flat on the floor, and either stay here or build this extension of the spine by allowing the pelvis to lift higher. I always have to turn my toes slightly out so that my knees can turn slightly out, because we do have a natural opening or expansion, external rotation of the hips is the words I'm looking for, as we back bend. That just has to happen in the pelvis to enable us to extend the spine. So the knees can rock out slightly, but not dropping. And roll the chest to the chin, but please do not pull your chin to your chest, especially with osteopenia. Lift the chin slightly. Let the chest lift up though. Normal gap between the back of your neck and the floor. Inhale here. And as you exhale and come down, flatten your palms on the floor, but keep your arms as far under your body as you can, so that you end up landing with your pelvis on top of your backs of your wrists, and your elbows are hiding under your waist. The arms are straight. Straighten out your legs, and this may be enough for you for this posture. Just see how you feel about this in terms of spinal extension, in terms of chest lifting, in terms of the shoulder position. And if you feel like a little more expansion in the front body, press down through your elbows, lift your shoulders up off the floor, chest to the ceiling, and then try and look back to the wall behind you. If you're sliding the head that way to look back behind you, please don't have too much weight on your head. Most of your weight is on your elbows and hands. And though the top of the back of the head is touching the floor, it is not taking a huge amount of weight. And breathe in this fish pose, feeling the breath coming to every cell. Relax the jaw. When you choose to come out, do so with as light a head as you can. So don't slide your head kind of with pressure on the floor. If it's sliding at all, it's a feather touch. And then land down, take the arms out. And again, just linger with the sensations in stillness or motion if you feel like moving. Don't forget to breathe. And then when you're ready, bend your lovely knees again. And go back to arch and flatten, touching the lower back to the floor as you exhale. And as you inhale, touching the tail to the floor, so the lower back arches. Do a couple more like that. And come back to neutral. And then while you lie there, just think about what you have in your room that would work as kind of yoga blocks. Could be cushions, could be a bolster, could be yoga blocks themselves, it could be a couple of books. And carefully organize that you can have them at the front of your mat. And also find yourself on your belly. You may not have much organizing to do, or you may have a fair bit. Do it carefully, consideration for your body. And just put the blocks to one side, or the cushions, whatever you're going to use. As you lie down with your forehead on your hands and give your bum, my favorite, wiggle side to side, wobble, flop, pulse, whatever. And then come back to neutral. And if it's available to you, come up into Sphinx, your elbows on the floor, or stay down on your belly if that's too much for you. Relax your jaw, slide your shoulder blades down towards your back pockets. Breathing. And then slide your hands under your shoulders, tuck your toes, and push up to all fours. And make it a long all fours, so you might have a look here. So there's quite a diagonal in my arms if my hips are above my knees. So I don't want you here with the hands under the shoulders, so a little further forward, both to take the weight off the wrists a little bit, but also so that we have a bit of motion to go back and forth. And that when you're going back, you have long arms. And when you go forward, it's almost kneeling plank. And we're inhaling forward and we're exhaling back. And it's a bit like the pulsing, except obviously it's a little slower. But it's similar in that I'm hoping that you look for a sense of rhythm and almost mindlessness. And it is about flossing the nerves, the tissues. Yeah, enjoying that movement. And the wrists, the shoulders, the hips, the knees. The next time you come up, could you try getting your hands on 2 blocks? Now, this may be horrible or yummy, but you're going to be in exactly the same position, except that the hands are elevated. And where it might be either extra yummy or horrible is when you come back. As you bring the head down lower than the arms, it's going to be more extreme on the shoulders. And then you rock forwards and back. If it's really struggling for your hands, because for many of us it is, the palms of the hands get tired very easily, you can keep the forearms and elbows on the blocks and work this way, or just use the floor. This is really very much getting all the same intentions met. Disrupt things, be disobedient. Your body needs you not to be on your hands. Just 2 or 3 more, maybe 3, or maybe 4. And the next time you come back, walk your hands back and kneel up. And if you find you can't kneel sitting on your bum, obviously kneel higher or sit, like bring your legs out in front of you and sit. And turn the palms up and spread your fingers wide. And then scrunch them all together, your fingers, and spread the fingers wide. And fists and wide. And fists and wide. Interlace the fingers, turn the palms forwards and up to the ceiling, a little arch back. And then bring the arms down. So the whole purpose of that was just to give the hands a rest. We're going to bring the hands back to the blocks. This time we're going to step the right knee, or rather slide the right knee up between the blocks, but more towards the right, towards a pigeon pose. But we're going easy on this pigeon pose. We're not dropping the hips down, but we're also not doing my usual thing of adding strength. I'd just like us to be passive, but not collapsed, if you can make sense of that. So collapsed would be if you're pressing or trying to get the hips to drop to the floor with gravity. And then active would be when I would maybe ask you to pull the shins towards each other and rise up through the head. But I don't want you to do that. But what I'd love you to do is offer a little motion to this moment. And let that motion be of your own making. It could be swaying, tilting, pulsing up and down, going back and forth, doing figures of 8 with the pelvis. You're just getting into the hips with curiosity and no expectation of what is supposed to be done. If your hands are getting tired, you can bring the blocks up higher and go on your elbows. But just be aware that obviously they're not gonna, they're more likely to fall when you're on the elbows and when they're high up like that. Or you could come up much higher into the back bend, which would stop you having so much effort on the hands or so much weight on the hands. Just getting into a little reverie of pleasure there for another 20 seconds or so. If it doesn't want to stay being pigeon, you're welcome to turn it into anything else that it wants to be. And then depending on you, can you either slide the right leg back to go cross-legged, so the right knee goes in front of the left knee, and walk the blocks back so you're sitting on your left heel in a kind of cow's head pose. Or it might be easier to get there for you if you instead slide the left knee up behind the right knee and sit back. So you're on your left heel and your right leg is crossed over. So it's not quite cow's head pose. And sit tall if you can. And then this might be a sneaky way of getting some of you who've never gone to cow's head pose before into cow's head. If you can shift them onto your two buttocks so that the left foot does come outside the right hip and the right foot is outside the left hip, and your toes are sticking out to each side like little cow's ears. And you're breathing, whichever version you can manage. And if you can't manage either of them, sitting up on the heel or sitting down, you can take the left leg out long, but you might need to put your block under your knees so your knee isn't hyperextended. And sit nice and tall and breathe. You might find you can sit tall better by holding the front knee and bringing your chest forward. Top knee, I mean. This gets into the IT band, the hips, obviously, and is a meditation posture. Not necessarily one that you would find very easy to meditate in, but just allowing yourself to go quiet. And then allow yourself to unfurl. Take your blocks back to the top of your mat. Walking back into that long all fours and going straight back and forward. Possibly with the hands up on the blocks to facilitate this quite strong stretch to the shoulders, which may be too much for you. You can do this down on the elbows without or with the blocks if you find that your hands and wrists are getting tired. And then when you're ready, slide the left knee up between the blocks, but closer to the left block. And just allow yourself to have a minute of free movement with breath, the sense of connection to your cells, and with a sense of desire to let the hips feel good. And don't forget to breathe. Don't have to stay in this position. Change radically. You need to be on your elbows. You need to be up high. And then with that minute done, we will either slide the right knee forward under or behind the left knee and sit back onto the right heel. Or you might find it easier to slide the left knee back to find the right and sit back onto the right heel for a moment. Squishing that underneath leg. Breathing. And then if you're able, come into cow's head pose by shifting your bum to the right so that the left heel is on the outside of the hip and the 2 feet are sticking out sideways. And if that doesn't work for you, take that bottom leg out front, put a folded blanket or a block under the knee so it's not hyperextended with the weight of the other leg on top. Either hold the knee to lift the chest or hold the feet or put your hands on your blocks, just some way to find a nice neutral spine. And if you feel like this is a place where you might enjoy exploring the idea of being able to turn inward and meditate, then do, or just see what it's like to inhabit this as a stretch. And then when you're ready, extend your legs out wide. You're very welcome to sit up on a block and get your either blocks in front of you like a little tower to rest your elbows on. It'll be quite a buckety tower. So you might prefer, if you have one, I hope you do, use it if you have one, which is a bolster, because that will just be a little more solid. And I'll show you side on. We're trying to maintain neutral spine. Tilt the pubic bone forward. You might be able to see that it's doable for me to do this without a block, but I'm feeling quite a strong pull on my inner thighs. And while, you know, we're trying to maintain some mobility and have a little bit of stress in the tissues, I feel like it's just 5% too much. And then popping that block in under the bum just makes it a little more pleasant and a little less extreme. You can also choose to hug the bolster, which is a very delicious thing to do, but it can be a bit of a bind in terms of holding it up and finding the right spot for your cheek to rest. And it can also be difficult not to end up kind of collapsing forward into a rounded spine, which is not good if you've osteoporosis or lower back issues. You want to stay neutral as you can. See what you fancy and what's possible. And we'll stay here for 2 minutes of deep breath. Mind your shoulders and jaw, and I'm going to be quiet here for that 2 minutes. Finding your way up. You put your bolster to your right side lengthways. And if you don't have a bolster, a few cushions, but maybe raise them up so it's 2 cushions and 2 cushions, or cushions on top of books or something. I want a little height there for you, please. And then take your 2 feet out to the left in a kind of mermaid position. I'll show you side on. You probably will not need any block you're sitting on, you can stay on it and you'll just end up leaving it behind. We're going to take our hands either side of the bolster, lift the chest and turn the chest. If you have osteoporosis, I'd like you to just shift slightly more towards the bolster so that when you're sitting, it's more on a diagonal from your hip rather than on a right angle from your hip, if that makes sense. So bring it slightly forward so that in order to turn and bring the chest onto the bolster, you don't have to go terribly far. Also, with low bone density, would you please rest on your right cheek, not endeavoring eventually to rest on your left cheek. But you can, if you don't have those spinal issues, eventually rest on the left cheek so that you're looking away from the knees. But be content that just resting on the right cheek here with the legs in this position and the bolster out to the side of you, you're getting a little twist for the spine. And if it feels a bit iffy on your lower back, bring your left knee on top of your right knee. So you're almost just cuddling the bolster sideways. And then if it's nice, you can bring that left leg even further back, like our propeller position almost, except with the knee bent so it's nice and relaxed, so that you've got quite an extension at the front of the hip there. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time here. I think we'll just go for 3 minutes in total, so another 2.5 minutes. Breathing deeply. Make sure you're warm enough and see if you can relax your bones. And without osteopenia, you might now already be able to turn your head the opposite way to your knees. And then slide your knees together if they're apart. If your head is turned the funny way, turn it back towards the knees. And then find your way up onto all fours, facing the bolster, and just do a little rocking back and forth to get to the center line. And then when you're ready, go back to or go onto your left hip with your mermaid legs. And then turn gently towards the bolster and lay down, belly, chest. And looking to the same direction as the knees, i.e. to the right. unless you want to turn the head to the left if you're not in danger in the spine of compressing the bones. And you can have your knees stacked one on top of the other if the mermaid position feels a bit iffy anywhere, like the lower back or the hip itself or anything. And we'll stay another little while to our 3-minute mark. Breathing deeply or lightly. There is value to deep breathing, so if it's comfortable to do so, why not? And then bringing your knees together. And if your head is turned a funny way, turn it back same direction with the knees and take a moment there. And then we're going to go a funny route now. We're going to shift the bolster over to the side of the mat a little bit, lie down on your side, roll onto your back, taking the bolster with you, and wrap your legs and the arms around it for a little old cuddle. Feel the center line of your body again. Feel the weight of the bolster if you have a nice heavy bolster, or even just the presence of lighter cushions. And then see if you'd like to stay like this or roll over onto your side to rest in side lying Shavasana. Or what's become radical for me now is to put the bolster down on the mat below your bum and rest into Shavasana. We so rarely do Shavasana in these sessions. We usually finish with a restorative pose. So just see what you'd like. Make sure you're going to be warm enough. Put on extra layers. Wear a blanket. See what's needed for your bliss. Or just your comfort. And surrender your weight. So speaking of disobedience and making things work for you as you desire, a little poem by the wonderful Mary Oliver called On Meditating, Sort of. Meditation, so I've heard, is best accomplished if you entertain a certain strict posture. Frankly, I prefer just to lounge under a tree. So why should I think I could ever be successful? Some days I fall asleep or land in that even better place, half asleep, where the world, spring, summer, autumn, winter flies through my mind in its hardy ascent and its uncompromising descent. So I just lie like that, while distance and time reveal their true attitudes. They never heard of me and never will or ever need to. Of course, I wake up finally, thinking how wonderful to be who I am, made out of earth and water, my own thoughts, my own fingerprints, all that glorious, temporary stuff. So I would tempt you to, in this pursuit of yoga or of life, to wake up finally thinking how wonderful to be who you are, made out of water and earth. Your own precious and wonderful, important thoughts, your own fingerprints, glorious temporary stuff. I hope that you'll linger there as I leave, taking your time when you do choose to finish your practice, to awaken gently, stage by stage, no rush, tethering yourself to the practice in your memory, but also putting around you any of those boundaries, those defenses that you need to inhabit this world as well. A sense of bringing softness, but also your robust self-protection with you. May you be well. May you be free from harm. May you progress where possible. May you find ways to sit at ease with the rest. And may all beings know peace. Om Shanti. Namaste. Thank you very much. And see you soon. Bye.